Lowe's knows how to help you get the most out of your store run. That's why members save more with My Lowe's Rewards. Earn points towards My Lowe's money on eligible purchases. Get access to member-only deals and free member gifts. Plus, unlock free standard shipping when you reach Silver Key status. So what are you waiting for? Join for free today. Lowe's. We help. You save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Pepsid Complete knows that food is one of the best parts of game day. That is, until heartburn strikes. Thankfully, just one chewable tablet of Pepsid Complete provides dual-action heartburn relief with an antacid that starts working instantly and an acid reducer that lasts all day. So you can stay focused on that second helping of chili without worrying about heartburn. All day based on 8-hour symptom relief studies during the day. Use product only as directed.
Hello and welcome to I Talk to Ghosts. I'm your spirited host, Jennifer, a professional medium and a teller of ghost stories. And tonight, the podcast is going to shine a spotlight on the spooky. I will be sharing with you tales of ghost lights. Orbs, phantom lights, blinkety blinks. Maybe. After the spooky, stay for the spiritual. I have a new in-studio spirit reading to share with you. I love sharing my work directly with you with all the details of what it's like to have a medium session with me. It's always mystical and unexplainable, and I find it fascinating, and I love it. Then after that, join me at my seance table for a message from the spirits. I open up the space for a spirit to come close for someone listening to the podcast. And since you're here with me, this message could be for you. That's later on in the podcast. But first, the spooky. Go ahead and dim the lights. The ghosts are bringing their own right now. I was deep in the woods and camping alone. This was something I've done before and was comfortable with the isolation. There was something peaceful about it, being just me and the wilderness. That night, though, something happened that I still cannot explain. I had set up my tent beside a quiet stream, the kind of place that made you feel like you were the only person left on Earth. As my campfire crackled, the stars twinkled in the night sky through the tree branches. After a few moments of enjoying my evening, I noticed a faint glow in between the trees. At first, I thought it was my eyes playing tricks on me. Maybe it was the reflection of moonlight on damp leaves. But then it moved, almost deliberately. It was a soft orb of pale greenish-white light, and it was floating just above the forest floor. I froze, watching it drift between the tree trunks, weaving through the undergrowth without a sound. My first thought was that it was another camper with a lantern, but it was too smooth, too ethereal. It didn't bob with footsteps. It glided. I whispered into the darkness, "Hello?" The light paused, as if it had heard me. Then it shifted, closer. Every hair on my body stood on end. There was no fear at first, just awe. It was beautiful, like something out of a dream. But then, the air around me grew heavy, thick with a damp cold that didn't belong on a mild summer night. My chest tightened with a kind of dread. I just couldn't explain it. The light flickered, and then there were two. A second orb appeared beside the first, both hovering silently, side by side. They drifted towards me slowly. I took a step back, my instincts finally screaming louder than my fascination. My foot snapped a twig, and the lights blinked out, just like that. The forest fell deathly still. I stood there, heart pounding, waiting, listening. Nothing moved, but the feeling remained like eyes in the dark. I couldn't sleep that night, and at dawn, I packed up and left. I'll never forget those lights. They were otherworldly and ultimately creepy. The first time I saw the blue light was last year. I don't sleep well, I never have, so I often drift downstairs in the early hours, book in hand, seeking fatigue in the quiet hum of the house. That night was no different. When weariness finally settled over me, I turned off the lamp and I started towards the stairs. That's when I noticed it, a circle of blue light near the ceiling, 5 inches across. It was perfectly still, but it pinned me to the spot. My chest tightened with a fear I couldn't explain, and I fled up the stairs. The next morning, I told my husband about this strange light. We stood beneath the space where I'd seen it, discussing reflections, bulbs, and screens. Nothing made sense. There was no reason for it to have been there. Weeks passed. Then one night, I descended the stairs for a glass of water. As I tilted my head up, my breath caught. The blue light had returned, paler now, smaller. Again, it didn't move. I forced myself to continue. I got my drink of water, and on my way back, I dared look up once more. It was gone. My husband and I spent some time the next evening hunting for answers. We dimmed lamps, adjusted curtains, tested flashlights and phones. Each attempt only amplified the strangeness of it. Nothing explained that blue light. And then last night, it escalated. I had drifted off to sleep on the couch, cocooned in restless sleep. When I awoke, I started back up the stairs. Halfway up, something made me glance towards the living room. The air had turned blue. Not a patch, not a circle. The room itself. A suffocating, saturated blue swallowed everything. Walls, furniture, shadows. This was not the flicker of passing sirens or streetlights. It was not headlights or screens. It was a blue light that bled from out of nowhere. We lived in this house for 18 months. Before us, an old woman had called it home for decades. We had been told the wiring was new, but it betrayed us constantly. Lights flickered, outlets died, circuits tripped for no reason. Small things vanish and reappear in strange places. Bells chime faintly in rooms we're not in. But this blue light, it's the worst, because it feels like something is watching. We were just kids, walking along the ridge like we had done a dozen times before. It was past midnight, the kind of summer night where the air was thick and still, but the crickets never stopped. Our parents thought we were sleeping over at a friend's house, but we had snuck out, eager for the thrill of the dark. There were 4 of us. We weren't looking for trouble, just trying to spook each other with dumb stories and laugh it off. The ridge overlooked the old field below, a wide stretch of grass that seemed endless in the dark. During the day, it was harmless, but at night, it was different. The shadows were longer, and the silence was louder. We were halfway along the ridge when one of us stopped suddenly. Someone whispered, "Hey, what's that?" pointing down into the field. We all looked. There was a light down there, moving slowly. It was faint, flickering, like an old lantern. At first, we thought it was just a farmer or some guy from town. But who would be out there at this hour? One of us, always the loud one, cupped their hands around their mouth and shouted down, "Hey, you lost down there?" We laughed, but it was forced. Something about that light made my stomach turn to knots. And the light stopped moving when the shout echoed. It just stopped. Then it changed direction, coming towards us. The laughter died. We all went quiet. The light picked up speed, swaying faster as it cut across the field. It wasn't walking anymore. It was gliding, too smooth, too quick. And there was this sound, a faint whispering, like wind through dead grass. But there was no wind. Someone grabbed my arm. "Let's go," they hissed. Their voice trembled. None of us argued. We turned and bolted along the ridge. I didn't look back, but I could feel it, that light, closing the distance. My chest burned as I ran, heart hammering in my ears. When we finally reached the edge of the woods, we hid behind the last of the trees and then peeked back through the branches. The light was gone. From what we could see, the field was empty, silent. We never spoke about it after that night and stopped sneaking out for our midnight walks. But sometimes, when I pass that ridge alone, I swear I still see that flickering glow moving through the field.
Hi, here's your report.
Thanks, Jane. I wish I could hire a whole team of yous.
Try posting a job on LinkedIn. It's the world's largest professional network. Unlike resumes, LinkedIn gives a real-time view into a candidate's skills, experiences, and more.
Huh, let's do it. You're irreplaceable, Jane, but another you would be great.
Find your perfect match with LinkedIn. Post your free job at linkedin.com/achieve. That's linkedin.com/achieve. Terms and conditions apply.
Love, exciting and new. Hello, Hannah Waddingham here. Have you seen the fabulous new Sun Princess? World-class entertainment, exceptional dining, and the greatest pizza ever. It's alive.
Don't miss our Come Aboard sale with up to 40% off and free room upgrades. Visit princess.com or call your travel advisor to book. Princess Cruises. Terms and restrictions apply. Offer ends 2/28/25. Ships of Bermudan and British Registry.
Hello and welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. My guest this evening is Adam. Adam, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm so good. I'm really excited to be here, honestly.
I'm excited to have you here. First impressions that I have to say to you is there's this conglomerate, and it's almost like they want to come in as a group, and I'm going to allow that. But I'm getting like father, grandfather energy, uncle energy, aunt energy, grandmother energy. All that is coming in. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what I do, and I haven't explained this in a while, because sometimes like people are like, oh, you're just reading the person as in like the social cues or like gestures and things like that. I start out with a bunch of notes. I've got my notes here before we even get on the call, because I want to even guard against that, because my own analytical brain does not, it's like I don't want to give it any chance to start with those things. So going in with all this energy, it feels like it's kind of all over the place. But when I opened up the space, it almost felt like this hug pile coming on. Laughter and humor seems to be a big thing, but I also sense that also is a bit of a Band-Aid. It helps cover some things up. It's almost like if you don't laugh, you're going to cry type of energy that's coming in. Does that make sense to you? You're nodding.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like our whole family, we don't really talk about. We just keep joking about things. Yeah,
Yeah. And that's great because the jovialness is coming in, and it is coming from a place of big heart, but with big hearts come big feelings. And with that, I wrote down drama and pain, and it's like happiness, laughter, togetherness. But underneath that, there's this drama and pain, but there's, and it's all mixed up together and it's all there. But yes, that hug pile coming in. I do want to talk about a couple specific things. One thing that's really influencing me as I'm writing my notes, my handwriting is getting very narrow and kind of scratchy, and my spelling is kind of not so great.
Okay.
Can you connect that to someone? It's a very scratchy handwriting.
Yeah, I suppose actually. And later, because I might actually have something handwritten here that we can compare. But I'll have to like ruffle it out of my drawer. So remind me to do that later.
Okay. Can you connect this for me? Just because I'm trying to pull people out of the group.
My grandmother would have we're a really like card heavy family. So like birthdays, Christmas, anything like that.
Okay.
We have cards, but it's always like my mom does it now, where it's love the whole family, but it's like it's only we all know it's only mom do.
Oh yeah. Right. There's female energy that's coming in, and I see her wearing like a scarf over her hair a little bit, and it's like a green scarf kind of and tied underneath. It's kind of old fashioned.
Potentially like my great grandmother. Who would have passed away like a good while ago. I think I was around 6 or 7 that I can remember. Or my other great grandmother, to be honest, actually, now that I'm thinking of it, who died like pretty recently, I think.
Okay. I want to narrow this down a little bit. This woman's energy, she is coming in with a very, again, that big heart energy, but also it feels like healing vibes, like nurse type energy or caregiver type energy. Like she really cared about taking care of people. And then like it really does feel like kind of like nurse energy. Can you connect that with her?
I mean, both of my great grandmothers were the ones who were nursed by my grandmothers. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Like, my grandmother, who's still alive, would have nursed her mom all the way up to the end, and the same with the other side of the family.
Okay, so your grandmother took care of your grandmothers, her
Yeah,
mothers.
It's confused. Yeah, we were like a multi-generational house. Yeah,
that generational thing. And again, there's a little bit of this laughter energy to it, but it's gentler.
Yeah, very much like sit in the corner, but giggling and laughing at everything that's going along. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think it's your great grandmothers who are coming in to acknowledge her and to say thank you. So your grandmother's still alive?
Yeah. And I'm trying to, my memory with like year numbers is so bad, but her mother would have only passed away like 2 years ago now. Yeah. And yeah, she like nursed her all the way up to the end. So
I know I like to steer away from anything that's really generalized or kind of stereotypical, but I was getting the impression when talking about grandparents and grandma that there was some knitting. There was some knitting going on.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, they all like, I'm pretty sure because my niece is like the first great grandchild. And I'm pretty sure because my grandmother used to knit, the one who is passed, she would knit for all of us as babies. And I think she even like picked it back up again specifically for Sophia, like so she would have one thing.
Yeah.
And green actually would have been like her go-to color for babies, like mint green. Yeah. It was gender neutral, and she was very ahead of her time like that.
Plus, you can start beforehand if you don't know if it's going to be a girl or a boy. Yeah, green is a really nice color. Okay. And the advice that's being offered around these women that they're offering is the advice is to guard against bitterness. And when people start coming in with information, like these women give me the impression that they were strong. They were tough. But they're also saying you got to guard against bitterness. You can't let, and it feels like this is some kind of nod to within the family of, hey, you got to check yourself. You have to be careful. And it's almost like talking about the group that we're talking about here, you know?
Yeah, that can definitely relate. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
Okay. I'm seeing throwing darts, not with the grandmothers.
Darts, not so much that I would have known, but definitely like pool hall vibes.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Pool hall darts. Like,
yeah. I've got like pool and billiards written down.
Okay, interesting, because it's snooker is what we play. And
okay, no, don't get ahead of me. I'm seeing like a croquette-sized ball type of thing.
That's really specific because so the snooker balls are bigger than pool balls, but it's played on a similar type. Like it would look like pool to anybody who didn't know what snooker was. You know what I mean? So the balls are bigger. So that's really interesting. That would have been my grandfather won like prizes for like in the local tournaments and stuff like that for snooker. So
there's some pride coming in with that. This feels like local newspaper type of thing.
Yeah, very much so. With like he would get to keep the trophy in the house for like a year and stuff, and then it would get passed that. Yeah, it was a big deal. Yeah, very cool.
Okay, with him. All right, let me see. I want to pull him in more. Is it grandfather who seemed to like the solid, logical plan?
I mean, he was very grounded.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I suppose you could say that in the sense that the women of the family who were a lot more like me, like I'd be very like close with them. Well, I'm close with them all, but like I was raised by women. They would be a lot more open with like just emotion in general, whereas he was just like black and white. Yeah, we have to move on, or you know what I mean. And that's that. So
almost like, why are we still talking about this?
yes, absolutely.
That's the energy that he's coming in with. But again, this joviality, it's not like he was just serious business all the time. He wanted to bond with people. He wanted to share, have fun, you know, and but there's this edge to him of, it needs to be logical. It needs to be practical. There's a practical sense to him. Okay. Now, feels like there's brother-uncle energy in here.
So we have a young cousin who passed away, but like that we all kind of grew up in one big melting pot of a house kind of thing.
I do want to talk about cousin, but first there seems to be this older energy that feels it's coming in a little rougher. It's coming in a little more it's like passionate chaos. It's kind of like you don't know how disruptive it's going to be and if it's going to be damaging or not.
For me, thinking like both sides of the family, you were pretty spot on with the snooker reference with my grandfather. And so if it's the other grandfather who was we all curse a lot as well. So if you're getting like stuff like that, don't worry, because that's the whole family. But the other grandfather would have been a lot more
volatile,
feisty. Volatile. Yeah.
Okay.
But I knew him as the docile old man, but I know for a fact that he was not always like that, you know.
Okay. It's like I need to take the time when people come all in a group. Sometimes it's like, you know, I'm not surprised when grandparents come in together because they're kind of pairing up, you know, and things like that. But cousin. Let's talk about cousin. This feels more withdrawn.
Okay.
Like within himself.
Right.
And also, it feels like either his environment was very dramatic or he was part of that drama, but ultimately he wasn't good at sharing it. It's almost like he escaped he withdrew.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
That's what he's offering. And he's offering a lot of, there's this energy of drama just for drama's sake. Like just, there was no substance to it. It's just drama.
Yeah. He would have been from he had some bad relationships with his like upbringing and stuff. Yeah.
It just feels like the environment wasn't conducive for him to be able to, we all want to be our ideal self, right? And when we're just dealt situations in our life where we're constantly responding to that, it kind of becomes our identity, and we kind of lose it. We lose ourselves a little bit because it's just response all the time. And then we lose that line of who's generating this? Where is it coming from? And you just start identifying with it,
Right. Yeah.
He is acknowledging a woman who was a bit of a sanctuary for him.
Yeah. So, I mean, he would have spent a lot of time in our grandmother's house, getting away from his own house, but also they would come out. Ireland's very small, so the distance between their house and my parents' house is like 10 miles, but it feels like, forever because it's like, so they used to come out for their holidays, and stay with my mom, and who was just much softer and would allow them to just be kids. And
yeah. Like he definitely wants to bring that in and acknowledge that. All right. I do want to talk about this thread of escapism that seems to be very prevalent. I can't say the word. That seems to be very prevalent. Yes. Prevalent. This thread of escapism that's there, that there feels like there's this warning to like guard against escapism, like alcoholism and things like that, where it's like it could be detrimental to you. Something that is normalized within a family, in any form it takes. It's just like there's this acknowledgement of knowing what you do and what's good for you and what isn't. And just to be mindful of that, because it just feels like there's this thread that's running through the family, and they're acknowledging it. Can you understand that?
Yeah, I think I'm 7 years sober this year. And the family
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that's definitely been a constant thread throughout. But yeah, so I knocked it on the head because I've got enough to deal with on my own,
Yeah, absolutely.
Without that help.
Good on you. And another message that I wrote down from this collective is, and like, I'm not sure you would have heard it from them while they were alive, but they're saying it's okay to be sensitive, and it's like, he's not going to get that yet. But it's like, no, when we cross over, we gain this insight, and all of our shields go down kind of, and they're able to express themselves and have this insight about looking back and looking forward. And they're like, you know what? It is more than okay to be sensitive, and we should feel everything we need to feel. And it's not there's no judgment there at all to be able to feel so many things, right. And that is part of being a human being, having a human experience, being a creative, and it's just so important. Like, you can't be an artist. You can't express yourself without feeling it first,
Right.
But that backlash and like, what did I write down? Self-criticism is nothing but damaging. And it's like, you got to remember that it's like the self-criticism that comes in because of all of that data that you picked up, and you're put it in your programming as a human being. It's not fair. And it's like, just the first thing we have to do is we have to know what's going on, because if we don't know it and we're blind to it, how are we supposed to adjust? How are we supposed to soften that? Right. So they just want to come in with, self-criticism is nothing but damaging. And when you notice it, do not judge yourself for judging, but realize what's going on. It's like, oh, it's this past stuff, and it's just this bad data. And it's almost like I gotta be gentle with myself and realize what's going on. And also just kind of, this is where humor can really come in and really help soften it, right? And use that humor to come in and just be like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it again, and and then just take a deep breath, take a step back and say, you know what, I'm going to do my own thing the way I wanted to in the first place, the way my heart wanted to in the first place. When I talk about inner child, our inner child is, who would you be before all this happened?
Oh, God.
That is the true you. I know they're all here, and I know they're all kind of talking over each other, and they really want to come in with all this advice, but it's like, well, we have to establish that who are we talking to first, right? Right. And because this is not something that would have been said in life, but it's just so freaking important, now. And it's the thing that they want to express the most. And so just be mindful of where this all comes from. And our brains are the last to change. Our brains like to route and make patterns so that it can save its energy and skip to the end. We make all these decisions, we lock the box, we never reconsider it, just to save the mental bandwidth of things. And your brain is the last to get the memo, that your soul is coming in. And so your brain will try to trick you and then just say, quiet you. I get it. But it's just hard because we get stuck. We get stuck in these patterns. And when we're feeling it up here and we're feeling that judgment and that critique, and it makes us feel bad, and then it's just this whole cycle of things, it's just like, realize what it is, and that your brain is just going to have to take some time and really honestly go through those exercises of thinking the opposite, forcing yourself to think the opposite, and like, this is true. And eventually it will soften up, but it takes a long time.
It is funny, though, that you bring that up, because that is literally how we talk to ourselves, specifically in my family. I'm sure everybody does it.
Yeah.
But with my grandmother, who passed away most recently, like 6-7 months ago, she was very open when doing it. And like, as a kid, like growing up, I didn't know it was weird, but like now as an adult, especially like the older she got, I noticed it a lot more. And I'd be saying to her, like, will you stop talking about yourself like that? You know what I mean? But at the same time, I do it. It's just internal for me. So yeah, that's a really interesting thing to note. Yeah,
they want better for you. And you deserve better than that. And they completely understand it, which why they're bringing it up. They're acknowledging that it's like, yeah, this is a thing, and you didn't invent this. This was not your idea. It's something you were immersed in, and they know it's not right, and they know you deserve better, and they want better for you. Continue to just be gentle with yourself and you're doing the right things. You are, but it's just, it can snag us, it can snag us really hard. And I really applaud you for examining it, because a lot of people just run screaming, or they're just like, no, this is how it is. And they can't get over the thought process, nor can they see that this isn't theirs to identify with. They're like, no, this is me, and I can't fix it. And it's like, oh, you're giving away your power there,
resigning yourself to it. Like,
I'm laughing because it's like, wow, this got deep really quick.
No, I'm here for it.
It's like we've been chatting for a half hour, and here I am just going through the underwear drawer.
I'm totally open. I like this kind of thing. Yeah. It's also interesting because I was the one, I'd be very open with specifically those grandparents who passed away. I grew up with them, literally lived in their house for a few years, but I would be the one, like when I started going to therapy and stuff like that, rather than it being like this weird, awkward thing in the corner, I would just say like, hey, this is what I'm doing this week. But my grandmother loved it. She was like, that's great. Like, I could see her going like, I wish I had something like that.
Yeah.
And for my grandfather, it was like, well, I guess this is a thing that men do now. So, what I mean? But no, like very supportive. It was just like,
yeah,
totally otherworldly to them at the time. So stuff like this, I would be specifically with them, I would have been like talking about quite a lot.
Yeah. As you're talking about it, they're bringing up mental burdens that they had. Like with your grandfather, it feels like, I don't know how well he slept. The mental machine was constantly going.
That is interesting because he was, after we lost my younger cousin, my grandparents, like, it was game over for them. It was like 7 years, and they just, sleep wasn't a thing for either of them. So that's interesting. And they would just be up at all hours in the morning. And then when he did get sick, he didn't tell anybody. So he just said like, no, I'm just going to write this out. Like, didn't tell anybody until it was far too late. So yeah, there was like that specific batch of time where like sleep just wasn't really a thing for them either.
Yeah.
So.
I did write a couple messages down for you from the collective, but before I get to that, I wanted to check in with you. Was there anyone you were hoping that would come in that hasn't come in yet? I know it's kind of been this big glob of family. But yeah, I want to check in with you.
So I'll give you the rundown. This time last year, I was back in Houston, but the day after Christmas is when I got the call, because my grandfather they were like, oh, turns out he's, terminal, but he didn't tell anybody. So
Sure.
Like, come on home. I was lucky enough to spend like 2 solid weeks there. Then I came back, but then he passed away in February, which we all knew was going to happen. So went back over for that. But then in May, his wife passed away. And that was like total shock to us all. Nobody expected it. She was such a quiet woman in life. I've kind of been expecting what happened to happen, that like all of these other people would come in, like say with the older women with the headscarves and stuff, like that would have been her mom, I'm assuming, or her aunties and stuff, because that's how they would have dressed. But yeah, so my grandmother, who passed away in May, I was wondering if she would have come through because she's so quiet, timid. But also I've had like really, really weird dreams that she was annoyed with me for some reason. And I can't figure it out, because never in life would that have happened. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, first, it could just be your subconscious chewing on something, right?
Right.
But I want to see. And like, I think I mentioned earlier on that she's coming in with this gentler energy, right? Did she ever do like this to you? Like, oh, like put her hands on your face?
That's so weird. Yeah.
Because that's what she wants to do to you now. She like wants to put her hands on your face and be like, it is okay. It is okay. And not to worry. She's telling you not to worry. And worry is just such a damaging energy to have. And she just wants to put her hands on your face and give you this kiss and tell you that she loves you. and that you're perfect, and not to worry. Don't worry. And she wants to soften things for you, but yeah, she's just
That's really funny because that's literally what she would do. So yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. So just know that she's here, and she just knows how important it is to have the right mindset. She's like, it's just a waste of time to focus on the bitterness or the thing that's bringing you down, or because there's so many other things. Life is just beautiful, and we tend to get distracted and not see it. Okay. All right. I do have some messages that I wrote down for you. Don't fixate on the expensive things.
Oh God.
Don't worry about money. Don't fixate on the expensive things or have a lacking mindset. All right. They're like coming in with that. It's like, and like having talked to you, I can understand that money drive and the worry about money. But it's like, if all we're doing is worrying, it's like, oh my gosh, we have so much. Yeah.
It's actually really funny. Sorry. Because it's literally the two sides of the family are so polar opposite in that the one is like, okay, money, or like work. Whereas the other side was like, we were broke and like we would eat like, literally any Irish listeners would probably relate, but like sugar sandwiches and stuff, right? Like, and it was just, and that's what that was always their thing, was like, you could have all the money in the world, but you wouldn't have this love. Like, you know what I mean? But it's so funny that it's like the flip side of the family as well. Like,
let's see. Celebrate is what they're saying. You gotta celebrate, and they want to encourage this for you. Remember this. You will thrive and be recognized. Like, celebrate yourself, and you will also thrive and be celebrated when you follow your creativity and your intuition. It's like getting out of your own way, shedding that judgment and that feeling that holds you back. And it's like, you want to thrive, and like they're talking about money and stuff like that, and just prosperity in life. Your zone to be in is to trust your intuition and your creativity, and the rest will come. I think that when we are moved to do something creative or expressive, immediately we think, well, how's that going to translate to dollars? Or am I going to have the money to do this? And it's like, you're missing the point.
This is literally the conversation I've been having with myself for the last like month at least. Yeah.
Just explore it. Explore putting that judgment and dollar sign aside. You've already done that work. You can put it aside for a little while and give yourself just that little space. Like, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to follow my intuition. I'm going to follow my creativity. And then at the end of 2 weeks, I'm going to see where I'm at. Don't ever tell yourself that you're going to make the wrong decision without even making the decision. It's like, you owe it to yourself to explore and then decide.
Right.
It's very easy to say no, but then we're just limiting ourselves without any true exploration of it. So there you go.
Wow. That I'm very impressed, honestly. Like, I hope that doesn't come across condescending, like,
no.
Genuinely, because like I was saying earlier, like, I've spoken with people who have like connected with other people in the room with me and stuff like that, and even in like, haunted houses, I'm doing air quotes for those listening, like, I won't experience anything. You know what I mean? And it's not that I'm not scared, I'm terrified. It's just, I figured I was just like as dead as a doornail psychically. And I figured the same with the family. Like, the rest of my family have had like just bizarre stuff happen, specifically in the last year. Stuff in my grandparents' house. My auntie's living there now. And they all call me straight away because they're like, ghosts. but they've had like stuff falling out of cupboards and stuff when there's been people upset in the house and stuff like that. And I'm just sitting over here physically removed because I'm in Texas as well. But it's just like nothing. I've got like trigger objects and stuff here that I kind of, I'm like, if you want, you can do this, it makes a noise or whatever. And yeah, nothing. So I'm constantly kind of just in limbo where it's like the old cliche. It's like I want to believe. What I mean?
Yeah.
But like I'm very impressed. I'm kind of blown away, to be honest.
Oh, that's wonderful, and like it's just so important to me. Well,
yeah.
Before we go, do you have a ghost story you would like to share? And also, I do want to mention before we talk about it that you have your own spooky podcast. But I want to hear some ghost stories first. So if you have a personal ghost story you'd like to share, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, so I actually have one specifically that I wanted to tell you. I've definitely mentioned it on Weekly Creep before, I'm sure, because anytime weird stuff happens, like it's a thing to talk about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But so I've had a couple. Typically, growing up, nothing ever happened. Like our house, if anything happened, I wasn't aware of it in any of the family's houses. Until I moved away and then went back for like a year, and me and some friends got into like ghost hunting. It wasn't that serious. It was literally just there's a big empty house on top of one of the hills in Dublin called the Hellfire Club. Really scary name. It's not all that scary. I'm convinced that we as a collective group of people in Dublin have haunted it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we would go up there, and then one of the last times we went up, it was right before I moved here. And this is I'm going to get to the part which I specifically wanted to tell you. But we were essentially chased out of the Hellfire Club, right? And it's so hard to describe. It's almost like a barn, okay? There's like multiple rooms and stuff. I'll send you a picture. I think I have one on my laptop.
Okay.
And there's upstairs and downstairs. I think there's 6 rooms in total. But like the ground, because it's so old, it's like 400 years old. So the ground has actually come up to the bottom window, if that makes sense. So you can jump out that window and you're just on flat ground. But in the building itself, this time we brought our witch friend with us, and we intentionally like protected ourselves, did everything properly, and I'm convinced that's why we got more activity. But we went in, and me and my friend's now wife went into one room. So we were going from room to room, just making sure it was empty. And we walked into the room at the back, me and my friend, and we both heard this at the exact same time, and it was a hiss. Like, and I'm talking like louder than a cat, extremely real, vivid, and like it's hard to even describe because there's a big open window at the back, but this sounded like it came from in front of the window. Like it was almost like a 3D experience. Like it was so bizarre. But our reaction was even weirder because we just looked at each other and we were like, we heard that, right? And we're like, yep. But we just went and we checked, looked literally for cats, all this kind of stuff, and nothing. And I've texted her so many times now since then, being like, we experienced that, didn't we? And she'd be like, yeah, weird. And then we just move on again. So we decided we would start that night in that little tiny room. And the entire time we were there, we were just on edge. But we heard the sound of a person just like existing, like just their feet just like making minute movements and stuff like that, where we were all kind of looking at this one spot by the door. And it got to the point where we were like, okay, well, it feels like this thing is out here. So we would go out there, and then we would hear noises in the room next to us. So we went to that room, and then the next room. And when we were in the last room upstairs, we started hearing what sounded like bowling balls, like rolling back and forth downstairs beneath us, like where there is like there's walls in the way. You know what I mean? Like they couldn't have physically gone. So it's like like moving furniture or bowling balls. It's the only thing I can think of. So at this point, we're like, oh, this is those kids. Like they're definitely just messing with us or something because, you know, whatever. So we run downstairs to try and figure it out. And eventually we end up outside looking back at the house or the Hellfire Club. And it was kind of at that point when we were like, this thing just literally chased us out or got us to follow it outside. It was like, we're not supposed to be here. And everything just felt so weird. Like I've never had an experience before or since that felt like this, but like all of us started getting really angry at my other, the other male friend who was there. And we were like, I mean, it's nothing new for us to give him a hard time, but we were like actually angry at him. And he would make suggestions. We'd be like, no, Carl, like, what are you talking about? Like, really aggressive. Like, and at that point we were like with our back, it's a gorgeous view. That's why most people go up there, because it's the whole of Dublin is just like burning away behind you. But we had our backs to the city and we're just looking at the house, kind of like going like, what is happening with us? And at that point I see like a big shadow figure with a red eye. Again, the more I tell the story, the crazier it sounds. And it literally just passed by the window as if it had been looking at us the whole time. And I just caught it as it was moving away. And I like, you know, hair on it, like blood ran cold. I was like, that's it. We're done. Like we have to go. We have to go. My friend Carl, who we're also angry with, he convinced us to stay, but he couldn't get us to go back inside the house. I think one of the other girls then claimed that she saw something in one of the windows as well. I'm like really skeptical, even like of my own stuff. So I'm like, I'm sure she did experience it. I didn't. So we checked the two kind of outbuildings and weird stuff was happening again. You know, just again, weird noises from inside the building where we knew that there was no. So with that, Carl, who we were also angry with, as we were leaving, he had he got pulled on his jacket, something like that, or he heard something. It was one of those two as we were leaving, and suddenly like his tune changed and he was like, okay, yeah, let's go. And as you were walking, because you have to walk like a mile down through the woods, like that's honestly, that's the scariest part of this, is walking back down through the woods. But as we get to the trail, I felt something pull my jacket, and I thought it was him. And as I turned, he like dropped his flashlight, but like as if he threw it at me. So I turned around and was like, what are you doing? But he was too far away to actually reach me. And he said something hit his flashlight out of his hand, and we were just like, okay, yeah, let's get home. We get to the car in the car park, and his wife, who me and her had heard this hissing sound earlier, she's like, my ribs are burning. So she has like a hoodie, you know, 2 undershirts on, a leather jacket, like scarves. She is bundled up. We get back to her house and we're all sitting around having tea. And she comes back downstairs and she like pulls up all of her layers. She's like these 3 scratches on her rib cage. And I'm like, I don't believe in like, you know, the whole like the number 3 or anything like that. It's not in my belief system. But all of this stuff was so interesting. I don't think we brought like a specific entity home or anything. It's like we brought just this weird energy back to our houses. My own parents, I was living with them at the time. It was just stuff was happening in the house. Like I remember hearing footsteps coming up the stairs when I was on my own. I had to tell whoever or whatever it was, like, this is my room right now. Like you can't be in here, because I woke up to like someone touching my toes, even though my toes were wrapped in the blanket. My light came on beside my bed, stuff like that. Anyway, then I moved here and everything kind of just burst. Like this big flat bubble of energy, like, or big round bubble just like burst, and it all went flat, and like nothing was happening. Sorry, it's such a rambly story as well.
No. I mean, there's just so much to it, and like how you have to explain all of it in order to see the entirety of it, you know?
In order to see me having a mental breakdown in the shower.
Get that critique. Get that critique out of your head. Yeah. You have homework.
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
Well, you mentioned Houston Strange and Weekly Creep. Tell everyone how they can find these, anything you want to say about your podcasts, because I'm intrigued. I have to go check them out. I made it a point not to listen before our reading so that
I'm not jumping to conclusions, or my analytical brain isn't getting involved in like trying to like, guess. I hate when my brain is trying to guess. So I'm definitely going to go and listen myself, but tell everyone else where a little bit about the podcasts and where they can find them.
Right. So Weekly Creep started because it was when I first moved here, like being a new immigrant, you have to wait like a long time for your paperwork, and it was pandemic and stuff. So everything took it like a really long time. So instead of getting a cash job, I did the proper thing, and I just took up a hobby. But yeah, so it's me and my wife, and we research stories, and we tell them basically in our own voice. I'm really bad at promoting it, to be honest, because it's one of those things. It's like, if you like our voices, you're gonna enjoy the show. The one thing is, don't start at the beginning, because we were very new. Start with the more recent stuff. We're hoping now this year that we can start producing it more frequently again, because we didn't have the ability to do Weekly Creep as much last year. I was like, I've been in Houston for 5 years this week, I think, and I wasn't giving it enough of a chance, I felt like. And so I just started like reaching out to people, and I wanted to like up my production game. That probably sounds really highfalutin. It's not. Like, I just wanted to try something different than the like the conversational back and forth podcast. So it's more like documentary style. Like
Sure.
I go and actually interview people, get their stories, and then I come back here and I start playing with crazy, silly little instruments that I have. I think I must have put them away. And I'll like write the music scores and stuff for it myself.
Nice.
So I'm literally sitting here like a madman, 3 o'clock in the morning, listening to stories, checking over my shoulder, and then I'm like writing little scores and like getting sound effects and stuff. But I'm really proud of it, to be honest. Like, it's probably the first time ever that I've been like, oh no, this is something that I did, and I'm really happy with it. And nobody's listening to it, so I need to get more people to listen to it. But it's season 1 was really short. Just 6 episodes. It's kind of like, boom, there you go. But now I have season 1 under my belt. I'm trying to take that to more kind of like local businesses and stuff, and be like, look, this is what we can do. Let's do something together. So I'm currently working with like a tour company in Galveston at the minute. And hopefully that'll be the start of season 2. There's some crazy stories down there. And
Nice.
again, I'm just sampling different parts of the city now as well. So it's a purely selfish act, you know?
Oh, no. I love hearing about like just the need to like creatively do things. And like, that's why I Talk to Ghosts, because I really missed having that podcast outlet, and I wanted to tell ghost stories and just have that outlet and to be able to express yourself in that way. It's not something we should ever self-dismiss. It's just necessary. So your podcast can be found like on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and everything like that.
Yeah, everywhere. As far as I know, everywhere. And if it's not on whatever app that you use to listen, like, reach out to me on Instagram, Houston_strange, and I'll get it on that platform, because I'm pretty sure it's on all the major ones, but there's always one that's like, that I've never heard of or something,
Yeah. And I'll make sure to put the links in my show notes as well, so people can just look at my show notes and click and find it. And yay, awesome.
Great. Thank you so much.
This has been so fantastic. The spookiness and the reading, and just when I do readings for someone that like I really don't know, all of a sudden I feel like I got a crash course in their life. Like, I felt all of it and like shared it with you. And I'm so thankful to know you and that you reached out to get a reading. And I just feel like this is amazing. This is a friendship now. So thank you for that.
Yes, this is it though. This is it. And I keep telling people like but like the biggest thing out of the podcast is the relationships that have formed from it. And like that, for me, like that's my level of success now. I'm like, no, and I'm very happy with it as well,
Absolutely.
So yes, absolutely. And it was also funny that I was listening to your podcast, and like, not passively is not the right word, but I remember seeing, like, I've never seen this one before, listening to a few episodes just to be like, hey, I could reach out to this person. Like they seem cool, whatever.
That's so cool.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I tell everyone I get invested, and it's not lip service at all. I really mean it. And so let's keep in touch, and thank you for everything. And I want everyone to go check out Houston Strange and Weekly Creep.
Thank you so much. Yeah, right on.
Hello and welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. I have a message from the spirits this evening, so thank you for being here with me at my seance table. Tonight, as I work, I have with me Yarrow. Yarrow is wonderful for frequencies of love, protection, drawing in positive attention, and it's also wonderful to work with for psychic energies. That is Yarrow. There is a woman connecting with me. I'm immediately seeing her comfy red couch, and there's pillows on it. It feels like this was her favorite space to be, whether she was reading or watching TV. Yes, reading was always important. She had a couple books in rotation at all times. Oh, but I see her journaling and writing, pen and paper, not typing, workbooks. This has like a academic college vibe to it. I just want to pass along everything that comes in as it comes in, not interpret it too much. Hearing guppies. Yeah, guppies. Kiddie pool, swimming, trips to the beach. She loved the movie Moulin Rouge. And tea. Experiment with different teas, but of course she had her favorite. Feels like green tea, jasmine tea. Loved to take walks, loved fresh air. This feels like sister friend to me, for you. Yeah, seeing that couch, those pillows and plants around it, talking on that couch. Okay. Her message for you tonight is she knows you're looking for the perfect partner, and she thinks that girl is out there somewhere. It's just going to take some time. She's saying, like, physically put yourself out there. Do the things you love. Again, I'm seeing books. Go to the bookstore. Read at the bookstore. Join a book club. Even if that's online. She's bragging about how smart you are. You're going to find a great partner who loves your brain and gets your sense of humor. So hang in there. You'll find her. I feel like this could radiate out of you. Put that energy out there in the universe. I think sometimes we focus on what we want and what we lack, and then we're kind of vibing I'm lacking this, and we're putting that out there. Just radiate yourself like a beacon, like, I'm ready, come find me. It's gonna be amazing. And it's completely different energy, love and excitement and possibility. I just feel this aura about you. Make it happen. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it at that. If this message connects for you, please let me know. You can email me at speaknow@italktoghosts.com. Thank you. Are you enjoying the podcast? Please leave a kind review or share it with a friend. These small actions take only a few moments, but they immensely help support the podcast. Thank you for supporting my work and the podcast. And with that, dear listener, we have reached the end. It's lights out for this episode of I Talk to Ghosts. I hope you've enjoyed my spirit work this evening, as well as those tales of ghost lights. Have you ever witnessed a phantom light of your own? I would love to hear about it. I love hearing ghost stories, especially when they're personal and true. So please reach out. In the meantime, wherever you wander off to, in this world or the next, just remember, come back and visit with me. Have a lovely evening and good night.
If you enjoy stories of the paranormal and the unexplained, join me for They're Not Shadows. He didn't look up as I approached. He just kept digging.
Hey, Jeff. What you doing?
Digging?
I can see that. Kinda looks like a grave.
Yep. A pig died.
You don't have pigs.
Did I say it was my pig?
They're not shadows. Fears for your ears.
Fear Daily is a podcast that takes you into the shadows of the past, unearthing the 1990s most terrifying tales of monsters, madness, and life after death. Discovered on a forgotten bulletin board server somewhere in Pennsylvania's Rust Belt, these stories are an archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown as told by the people who experienced them. Written by Brennan Storr, creator of the Ghost Story Guys, and hosted by Brandon Schecksnyder of Southern Gothic, Fear Daily is your window into the dark corners of our world. Follow Fear Daily today on your favorite podcatcher to receive new episodes Monday through Friday each and every week.